Welcome back after the tea. Welcome back after the tea. We will now begin thematic session 7 on session 7 on innovation in education, wherein in this session we explore innovative approaches to teaching, learning and policy in Bhutanese education, highlight the use of technology and generative AI, and strategies for equity and inclusion through universal design for learning and the development of comprehensive education policies. The session will also emphasize evidence-based practices to enhance educational quality, accessibility, and student engagement across schools and higher education. In this session, we are honored to have Dr. Doji Thinle, President, Paro College of Education, to provide the keynote address. Dr. Doji Thinle is a student of Buddhist studies and a teacher-educator with extensive experience in Bhutanese higher education system. He has led leadership positions, including as the Director of Research and External Relations at the Royal University of Bhutan and the President of the 2 colleges of education in Bhutan. He has led initiatives that integrate Bhutanese heritage, including mind training, meditation, and music, with contemporary educational approaches such as STEM and AI. He has established several centers of learning in the colleges of education that weave Bhutanese art, music, dance, textiles, lived culture, spirituality, and modern educational practices in an integrated manner. Dr. Doji was also the founding managing editor of the BJRD, or the Bhutan Journal of Research and Development, which was also launched as a special edition on day 1 by the chief guest and the Honorable Ambassador. Dr. Doji has built partnerships with institutions worldwide, and his work spans educational policy, research, and publications on education, culture, and well-being. He is also the author of The Boneless Tongue, published in 2024, and 360 Wisdoms for Today, 2025 by Acharya Nagarjuna, which is in press. Please welcome Dr. Doji Thinle to deliver his illuminating keynote address on weaving wisdom and innovation, designing a life-enriching and inclusive education for Bhutan.
I thought you were going to pluck out my ear. Am I ready to go? Okay, thank you. Thanks. Thanks. Naso. Thank you, Your Excellency, the Ambassador, Tasho Vice Chancellor in absentia, distinguished guests, speakers, and participants from Bhutan and outside. I grew up in a village, in an environment of song, dance, festivity, colors, forms, shapes, values, loss of spirituality, and the memories have stayed with me. And at every critical phase of my role in the education sphere, these memories have had a deep influence, whether it's the tradition of song, the dance, the music, or the spiritual traditions. I like innovation. It's a beautiful word. The etymology of the word innovation is fairly simple. It comes from the Latin word innovare. It's 3 syllables. The English word is also just 3 syllables, innovate. And the Bhutanese equivalent of innovation is Rikpa Sartu. It has 4 syllables, Rikpa Sartu. But the idea is the same. It means to create something new, to reinvent, to do something differently, so that there is improvement, there is positive change. Innovation also aligns very well, in my view, what both Aristotle and Buddha had said. Aristotle proposed two forms of wisdom: Sophia and Prudencia. Beautiful words. Sophia actually means wisdom of understanding phenomena, understanding reality, objective reality, with clarity, with depth of understanding. It's a beautiful proposal that Aristotle made. Propensia, propensia, P-H-R-O-P-E-N-S-I-S-I-A. Wisdom of application. So I'm convinced that the theme of this conference aligns very well with this great philosopher who proposed these two forms of wisdom. About 100 years before Aristotle, the Buddha had also proposed three kinds of wisdom. It's called Te, Sam, and Gom. Te has profound meaning. Te means investigate, explore, research into, find out what is it, why is there suffering, what's wrong with the environment, find out how we can preserve it. What is happiness? Where does it arise? How does it arise? That's Te. Investigate. Some. Spend hours, spend days, spend weeks reading, listening to others, and try to reflect on what you have heard, what you have read. And I think the modern epistemology around research, inquiry, and scholarship is all about this. Contemplate, analyze, reflect, find out, get the evidence, validate, revalidate, question, critique. Get to the core of the thing before it's validated as valid knowledge. The Buddha taught this 2,600 years ago. And of course there is Gom, practice. It means, the literal meaning is meditate. It also means put it into practice. See whether it works or not. Practice. So I think if you look at Aristotle, if you look at the Buddha, and if you look at what we are up to today, that is harmony. And I think this is the beauty of innovation. Change for the better. Change to improve status quo. I go back to 1998. I started to teach in a college in the south. It's called Samse College of Education, for about 13 years. I encountered a situation. I was required to teach a collection of short stories. A collection of short stories. And there were stories from the US, stories from England, stories from Russia, stories from India, Sri Lanka, you name it. Around 15 beautiful stories. As I was gearing up for the semester, I realized there was a problem. These stories were sitting in different textbooks. Let's say 5 textbooks, and there were only 5 textbooks. So 2 stories were sitting in one textbook, another 3 was sitting in another textbook, another 3 was sitting in another textbook, one story was sitting in another textbook. And I started to ask myself, how will the students manage this now? How are they going to interact with the stories individually, get a copy in their hand, read it, understand it, underline it, put an exclamation mark, use red marks, put a question mark, underline the beautiful words and phrases that they come across, ingest them, make it a part of their vocabulary. But that facility was not there. I asked the students, the senior students, how did you study these stories? Oh, we went to the library, looked at the same textbook in a group. So I was imagining 6, 7 students would look at the same textbook like this. I thought, no, I had to do something about it. What I did, because I wanted mastery, my interest was for them to develop passion in reading and cultivate mastery over the language and literary qualities of the stories. I said I needed to do something about it. First thing I did, I'll go to the library, borrow all these 5 textbooks that were sitting in the library like sacred treasures, made a master copy of each of the stories. So I had 15 stories with me, compile them, and give it a name, beautiful name, so that when I hand the booklet to the students, they are excited. Wow, it sounds beautiful. What should I name? I was looking at the title of the short stories. There was a beautiful story called The Silver Crown by an American writer. The Silver Crown. I decided I will call this book The Silver Crown. Days passed, semester was approaching. I went to the administration and said I needed some funds to make multiple copies. There were 35 students, and I was aiming to produce at least 45 copies. The rest spare. A few days later, I learned from the management, the administration then, saying, sorry, no funds. Semester was approaching. I was literally imagining the faces of the students, right? And how I would teach those stories. I said, no, I'll do something about it. I'll use my own money and walk across to the Indian border, go to a small town called Bannerhat. It's about an hour's drive on taxi. I got onto a taxi. I had a master copy, by the way, with me. Taxi, and the taxi must have been around 20, 25 years old. And there were a dozen people clinging onto every space available on the taxi. I became one of them. I went to the town. I was looking for photocopiers. Finally, I found one. I asked them, can you make 40 copies within 1 week? The person said yes. After 1 week, I go to Bannerhat, get 40 copies of The Silver Crown. The semester begins. I say, this is what you're going to study. The Silver Crown. Silver Crown. Thus the story began. So in my view, can I have some water, please? It's here. So in my view, innovation is not a big multi-million-dollar corporate government initiative that should overwhelm educators. In my view, every educator can be an innovator. And our classrooms can be true laboratories of educational innovation. That incident back in 1998 was a trigger point for me. Keep improving. Focus on the student. Improve the curriculum. Improve the teaching styles. Adapt to new methods. Learn the new technologies. In my college, colleagues are using now different types of AI tools to make learning much more enriching, meaningful, and deep for the students. And this is very encouraging, actually. We should continue doing that. I know. I just have a few slides, so I'm not worried. 2015, I went back to the college as a president. I was fascinated by the idea of music education. As I said earlier, 60,000 plus children in the country within the age range of 3 and 12 years. That's a huge sector, about 40% of the total student population in the country. How do we introduce music to them? It all began with one word, two-syllable word, lyric. I discussed this idea with friends in Samsi College. We should introduce music education in the primary education curriculum. I need not talk about the benefits of music to child development. There's tons of research literature that actually affirms the value of music to children at that formative age. Then the journey began. This is in Paro College. Today, the music education program is in place. College students, boys, girls, everybody learns to play 4 Bhutanese musical instruments. Drumyen, the beautiful drumyen, the beautiful chima, which looks like violin actually. We also have introduced violin, yache, and the flute, beautiful. The course is in place. It's a mandatory course. It's part of the 4-year BEd program at PC since 2021. Students train in the on-campus traditional music studio. Over 1,000 students have completed the course. 200 plus graduates already teach in primary schools. 200 plus more soon to join the system. Research and innovation enrich the program. I was going to introduce this in Samsi when I was the president for 3 years, 2015 to 2018. There was a change in the government policy. They stopped all undergraduate programs. I said, I will get it done one day, no matter what comes. Fortunately, I was in Paro from 2018. I started to discuss with friends the need to introduce music education as part of the primary education curriculum for Bhutan. Sorry. Oh, how come? I'm concluding. Yes, there was a framework. When you introduce something new, it's useful to follow a framework. Novelty, the innovation must have novelty. Not mere newness, but it must have utility. It should be useful to society. There should be a value creation. It should be applicable. This can be replicated across the entire school system now. I'm very confident. It should lead to improvement. It has led to improvement, transformative potential. It should change habits, systems, and institutional cultures. Yes, what did I learn from the process? When we innovate, when you set up a new system, it's not easy. The journey is going to be extremely difficult. Always try to see the larger picture, the landscape. Sense opportunities for change. Conversation is key. Talking with colleagues, building teams is important when you're initiating something new at the systemic level. Shaping and walking the path, having a roadmap, having a blueprint, mobilizing resources, absolutely important. Staying true to the purpose is not short-lived, it's long-term. So one must stay true to the purpose, and of course, communicating the change vision, talking about it again and again and again and again is absolutely important. Finally, I'd like to read one line from a book that I read recently. By the way, the book is in DSB Books in Thimphu. Many of you may have read, especially for students from the colleges. If you want to change the world, don't ever, ever ring the bell. Guess what the book is from. Ringing the bell meaning giving up. Don't give up. If you want to change the world, don't ever, ever ring the bell. And it's from a book called Make Your Bed. Make your bed every morning. I made my bed this morning. Make your bed. It sets the tone for the day. Make your bed in as perfect a shape as possible every time we wake in the morning. So, William H. McRaven, the book was published in 2017. Make Your Bed concludes the book with these words. If you want to change the world, don't ever, ever ring the bell. Thank you, Kariche. Sorry for the clumsiness.
Thank you, Dr. Dojitille, for your truly illuminating keynote presentation on one that beautifully reflects the depth of a true student of Buddhist studies, and showing and technology and reimagining innovation, not as a rush for new technology, but by a renewed sense of purpose, and truly reshaping the innovation of the spirit, and by staying true to the purpose. Truly powerful there. And with this strong and powerful keynote opening, we have the session speakers. And in the first, we have Norbu Wandi, currently a teacher teaching at Gongzim Ugen Doji Central School in Ha, Bhutan, with 15 years of teaching experience in physics and mathematics. He holds a master's degree in educational professional studies research from Griffith University, Australia, and a master's in education physics from the Samsi College of Education. His research focuses on integrating digital technology, pedagogy, and science education. With several international publications, he explores how technology integrating Gen AI can enhance student engagement and learning outcomes within Bhutan's evolving educational context. Please welcome Norbu Wangdi to deliver his presentation on affordances and barriers to technology use in Bhutanese secondary school science classrooms.
Hello. Your Excellency, Ambassador, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Norbu Wangdi, and the title of my paper is Affordances and Barriers to Technology Use in Bhutanese Science Classrooms. Throughout my presentation, I will take you through background of the study, followed by research questions, literature review, result analysis, discussion, conclusion, and the recommendations. Quickly to look at the background of the study, we know that in 1960s, with the rapid expansion of modern schools in Bhutan, Royal Government of Bhutan has quickly adopted Indian science curriculums. And over the decades, there has been a series of revisions. And by the end of 2017, we have marked the end of adopted science curriculum. And the science curriculum that we use today is the latest revised one in 2021. One of the keywords that I'll be using throughout my presentation is technology, but in my case, it refers to use of both hardware and software by the teachers, where hardware includes computers, mobile phones, tablets, interactive boards, whereas software, it includes educational apps, multimedia tools, and simulations. In terms of integration of technology in Bhutanese science classroom, researchers argue that it all started from 1999, since the introduction of internet and television in the country. However, in 2010, Royal Government of Bhutan has took a significant initiative by introducing a project called Shikphendikpal project, and under that project, around 4,807 teachers have received training on integration of technology in the classrooms and established 168 computer labs. At the end of this project, MOEST again initiated ICT master plan called iSharik-1. And through this project, MOEST has provided internet connections and established computer labs in secondary schools across the kingdom. Following this iSharik-1, iSharik-2 was introduced. Again, it was aimed to develop ICT in education policies and to provide teachers with training on integration of technology in the classrooms. However, researchers argue that despite all these initiatives, there is the minimum impact on the actual ground. And also during the time of this study, I found there is very limited literatures, particularly in the integration of technology in the higher secondary school science classrooms. Although there are a few literatures that exist, but they are all focusing in primary schools, either focused on one school or a zongak. This leaves a significant literature gap. Therefore, to address this gap, this study was conducted with these research questions. How do Bhutanese science teachers integrate technology in the classroom? What are the science teachers' level of technology integration at each level of summer model? And what are the barriers to integration of technology in Bhutanese science classroom? What is the impact of digital technology on students' learning engagement from the perspectives of science teachers? As a part of literature, I have looked at the historical and global perspectives of technology integration in the classrooms. It's interesting to note that the use of technology has become so popular in the West from 1980s, despite the existence of computers in 1950s. Since then, technology has become integral part of classroom teaching and learning. As a result, there was a transformative shift in the teaching and learning. It is because researchers argue that effective integration of technology fosters 21st century skills in our students, which includes learning and innovation skills. We have forces there, information media technology skills, life and career skills. These skills are very much necessary for our youth to navigate in this very fast, rapidly changing world. This research is grounded on the theoretical framework or summer model by Pindu Tero 2010, where he suggests that technology can be integrated in these 4 levels, which is known as summer level. S stands for substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. In the substitution level, technology acts as a direct substitute for the traditional teaching learning materials. However, as we go up at the redefinition level, technology should allow the creation of tasks that is impossible in the absence of technology. Another theory that is informed in this research is Edmund's barriers to technology integration, where he classified barriers to technology integration into 2, first order barrier and second order barriers. First order barrier includes limited access to technology resources, inadequate training for teachers to integrate technology in the classroom, limited budget. This constitutes a significant barriers to integration of technology. However, in second order, it is associated with teachers' beliefs and attitudes towards integration of technology. Just to talk a brief on my methodology section, this study employed mixed method, particularly focusing on explanatory sequential, where both qualitative and quantitative method is involved. In terms of quantitative data, it was administered through survey questionnaire from 138 high school science teachers representing from 45 secondary schools across the nation, whereas qualitative data was administered using interview technique from science teachers representing from different schools of the country. And the quantitative data was analyzed using descriptive and inferential, while interview data was analyzed using thematic analysis employing both deductive and inductive approach, which is also known as hybridization. The result shows that Bhutanese science teachers, particularly high school science teachers, they integrate technology at the substitution and augmentation level. Of course, there are few, but as we go up higher the summer level, there is minimum use of technology. This graph shows that the integration of summer level by the Bhutanese science teachers based on their teaching experiences. And here is also under the table, which shows the different barriers to integration of technology based on the locations of the schools. The statistical result of my study found out that there is no statistically significant difference among the Bhutanese science teachers based on their teaching experiences on the summer model. Also, it found that there is no statistically significant difference in the different variables of barriers to technology integration based on the locations of the schools. The interview analysis suggests that Bhutanese science teachers have strong positive beliefs towards integrating technology. However, the study found out that there is a lack of technology infrastructures in the schools. For instance, there is no reliable internet connections. The computer to student ratio is 1:20. Also, the lack of training for teachers to integrate technology in the classroom remains as one of the significant barriers to integration of technology. However, it is interesting to note that participants rely on their self-exploration and peer learning to develop their technological skills. In terms of time constant as a barriers to technology integration, there's a mixed perception. While some teachers share that non-academic tasks, large class sizes, inadequate resources are some of the barriers, but others argue that as long as these resources are in place, time constant is not an issue. Discussion level, in connection to research question 1, this study found out that Bhutanese science teachers predominantly integrate technology at the enhancement level. And to address the research question number 2, as explained earlier, this study found out that first order barrier, that is limited to technology infrastructures, limited computers, unreliable internet, inconsistent electricity supply, particularly in rural areas, lack of uniform policy regarding the use of mobile phones by the students across the schools, all are some of the barriers that impedes, that obstructs the use of technology by our teachers in Bhutanese science classrooms. Also, to address research question number 3, this study found out that technology provides interactive and immersive learning experiences. As example, like virtual labs allow students to conduct experiments that is impossible with the involvement of physical apparatus. However, the use of technology also found some negative impact, over-reliance on generative AI content, ethical concerns, and privacy issues. Considering all this, the study included that science teachers, Bhutanese science teachers, particularly teaching higher secondary school level, have positive attitudes towards integrating technology. Majority of them integrate technology at the enhancement level of the summer level model. The study also revealed that there is no significant difference in the integration of technology based on teachers' experiences, professional experiences. It's also found that limited technology infrastructure and lack of training constitutes a significant barriers to integration of technology, and all these schools have nearly equal access to technology infrastructures. Teachers have positive perceptions regarding the impact of technology on students' engagement. With this study recommends that maybe all these schools can be equipped with essential technology infrastructures so that teachers can effectively integrate technology in the classrooms. Maybe relevant agencies may provide regular training for the teachers on the integration of technology and develop clear guidelines to use technology in ethical and meaningful manner. Schools may also implement digital literacy, AI literacy programs for students to harness the best potential of the technology. Further research is recommended on the impact of mobile phone, particularly in Bhutanese school, whether there is positive or negative impact, and also to evaluate the effectiveness of online courses that is attended by our teachers due to absence of standard formal training provided by the government. With this, I have come to end of my presentation, and I would like to thank everyone for your attention. I hope that I'm on time, by the way.
Thank you, Nurbondi, for your study on technology integration in Bhutanese secondary schools and highlighting the need for improved access to quality professional development and digital tools to strengthen technology-enhanced learning in Bhutan. And yes, you are also on time. And to move on to the next speaker, we have Sringom Tamang. Sringom Tamang is a lecturer in the Department of Science and Humanities in Samse College of Education, Royal University of Bhutan. Her research interests include multilingual and bilingual education, literary studies, literature pedagogy, and the use of ICT in English language teaching and learning. Her recent projects include funded studies on gender equality and social inclusion and technology integration in Bhutanese classrooms. Please welcome Sringom Tamang to deliver a presentation on exploring the integration of Gen AI tools in teaching, learning, and assessment in the colleges of RUB, students' perspectives.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to touch on a couple of points of discussion that were already discussed from yesterday's fireside chat and present our team's research on exploring the use of generative AI tools in teaching, learning, and assessment. We are mostly focusing on the potential benefit and challenges Gen AI tools offers, and we are focusing it based on students' perspective. However, before I begin this research, I did want to highlight that the data for this research was collected almost a year ago, and with AI evolving so rapidly, some of this might look slightly different than our research. In late 2022, when ChatGPT was suddenly made available to the general public, that, I think, woke up the world to the potentials of AI and what AI is actually capable of doing. And with ChatGPT being made available to everyone, lots of other generative AI also started being made available to the general public. And that gave rise to numerous discussions about the potentials of AI to transform traditional educational pedagogies. And of course, like in the fireside yesterday, there was discussion about the advantages of AI to personalize learning, offer dynamic assessment, and change the teaching learning environment, but also, of course, concerns about the spread of misinformation, privacy issues, and most importantly, within the teachers, about the academic integrity. Bhutan traditionally the education system has traditionally been very proactive in actually embracing ideas that actually leads to transformative pedagogy. So as Ugen presented, with the COVID and with ICT tools, teachers were already into using ICT tools in their classroom. But when a series of generative AI tools started being made available, the responsibility of trying to integrate those then again falls on the teachers. At the time, The Montreal Declaration for Responsible Development of AI actually has 10 comprehensive human-centric principles for responsible use of AI. UNESCO also has a policy about equity, ethics, and privacy protection for the use of AI, but both of these, at the time of our study, did not have an AI policy specifically for education. SAMSI College of Education at the time of the research and RUB at the time of the research also did not have a policy for AI use within our classrooms. However, we did notice that a lot of teachers and a large amount of students were already using AI in their classrooms. Therefore, the main thing we wanted to find out was what are students' perspective on the potential benefits and challenges of using generative AI. And with this, the one thing we wanted to find out was teachers were using AI, but students were using more AI. So number one, try and identify what are some of the AI tools that students are actually using in terms of its benefits and challenges. And of course, that will allow us to perhaps educate the teachers on a proper and strategic plan of using AI in the classroom. And we were also hopeful that our research would result in a policy in SAMSI, perhaps within RUB, for the use of AI. We did extensive literature review for this research, but due to the time, I'm just going to present it up here and not explain it. So these were some of the benefits highlighted by literature for the use of AI. And of course, these were some of the disadvantages, which were AI hallucinations, which were also discussed in yesterday's fireside. In terms of our methodology, we used a qualitative approach, and we actually conducted focus group interviews in 5 colleges under the Royal University of Bhutan. We were quite deliberate in our selection of the 5 colleges because we wanted to ensure that programs from arts to technology to business were included in the 5 colleges that we were going to conduct this research on. We conducted 6 focus groups in each college, 2 for the first year, 2 for the second year, and 2 for the third years, and it was balanced between 3 male and 3 female students. All the data were analyzed using Cresswell and Cresswell's thematic analysis. Now, to spend a little bit more time on the findings and discussions, one of the main things we wanted to find out was how much do the students actually understand about AI, and the research indicated that students actually had a mixed understanding of what generative AI really meant. Some were able to say what generative AI means in terms of its ability to create new content, but there were others who did not necessarily know the difference between generative AI and non-generative AI. There were also some who highlighted basic ICT tools such as computers, mobile phones, and projectors under generative AI tools. So that told us something about the students' understanding. In terms of the use, in terms of generative AI, ChatGPT was the most prominent among all the 5 colleges, followed closely by Gemini, and very popularly also by Snapchat AI, which was very new for us as researchers. In terms of the non-generative AI tools, Grammarly was number 1, followed by Quillbot, both for writing and refining, and Canva for presentations. However, because this was a year ago, I have a feeling that this might have changed quite a lot within the last 1 year. But at the time of our study, it did align with the other researchers that was there. So I've highlighted that below. In terms of the benefits, the benefit that came up again and again that students said was it saves time in terms of writing assignment and doing research, with majority of the participants saying that an assignment that used to take a week can be completed within half a day. And they said that they usually use this, especially if they're pressed for time, or if in case they have multiple deadlines in the same week. With that, the other benefit the students also highlighted is the use of AI as a quick source of information, with many students highlighting that they do not rely on Google anymore. Google has lost its Rinpoche status. But because with Google, you have to find and search for the information, whereas generative AI will provide that information to you on a platter. So that was the idea. Of course, students also highlighted that personalized learning was a huge advantage because they could not just tailor it to their needs, but also to their pace and also to their timing, especially with students saying, I like studying in the middle of the night. I have generative AI to help me learn at that time, right? And the last benefit, one of the benefits that the student highlighted was many of the students seem to be using AI as an emotional support friend. Yesterday, Madam Yishe in the fireside highlighted that students are hesitant to ask questions in the class, but they don't hesitate to ask that to ChatGPT. So it replicated that. But more than that, we also realized that students are actually using ChatGPT as a friend, or AI as a friend, Snapchat AI as a friend that they can share secrets with. And students were having conversations with ChatGPT, asking ChatGPT, do you have a girlfriend? And ChatGPT will respond, and they would have a follow-up. And they were also asking ChatGPT to provide stress management tips, asking for advice, provide a timeline for their work. So they were using it a lot more. And literature does support that the use of AI has made it feel like the users feel feelings of being heard has been enhanced because of the use of AI. In terms of the challenges, participants were very aware about the lack of reliability of information provided by generative AI, especially in terms of accuracy, credibility, and comprehensiveness. And many of them expressed a real reluctance to directly submit the output created by generative AI as their final assignment. So some kind of refinement was definitely going on. That's what the study stated. Students or participants were also very aware in terms of the negative effect it was having on their learning, with many highlighting that critical and creative thinking was affected, highlighting that their previous study was driven by curiosity and investigation. They like searching for answers, but now ChatGPT or other AI tools gives you the answers very quickly. So they were very aware of that. Another term, in terms of the negative impact on learning, participants also highlighted the negative impact on reading habits as well as writing habits. They don't read as much. They would rather read a summarized version from AI. And the next one was also ChatGPT. Students said, not Chat, AI generation, AI tools, students said, almost allowed them to create an apathetic attitude towards learning, highlighting that whatever I can do, ChatGPT can do better in a shorter time. So my effort does not necessarily feel appreciated in terms of that. And because of that, because of the over-reliance on it, they are developing intellectual laziness and a complacency that they are very aware of, but can't stop using it. And the last one, absence of human connection. While students are using ChatGPT as an emotional friend, they also highlighted that student-to-tutor interaction and student-to-student interaction has greatly reduced. Because before, when they did not know a concept, they would go to their friends and ask, what did you think about it? Then they will have the chance to share their opinion and discuss it. But since everybody is relying on generative AI tools, they do not necessarily have that space. And many participants highlighted that they are getting increasingly disconnected from their learning communities in groups. They also highlighted some ideas like social, emotional, and communication skills are not necessarily skills that generative AI is able to provide, with many highlighting that when I ask ChatGPT a question, it does not necessarily cater to my what my emotions are asking. So based on that, these are our conclusions and the recommendations. There is a really high need to provide AI literacy skills to the students. It could be based on AI prompting, but also in terms of verification. And teachers and educators need to be more strategic in their plan so that students are using AI as a catalyst for learning rather than a crutch. And there is a very urgent need to create a policy for responsible use of AI within the RUB as a whole. These are my references, and I'm going to end this by borrowing Dr. Dojitile's quote. AI is changing the world, AI is changing education, so please don't ring the bell on AI. Thank you.
Thank you, Sring, for your study on how students consume Gen AI tools, and also with findings calling for stronger awareness, guidance, and policy frameworks to ensure AI is used responsibly while safeguarding academic quality in the institutions. With this, and to move on to the next presenter, we have Dr. Phuntsho Wandi, who is currently based in Canberra, Australia, and works as an education consultant. Dr. Phuntsho's research interests include education policy and practice, public administration and management, spiritual education, and educating for gross national happiness. Dr. Phuntsho Wandi also served as a teacher, education administrator, and policymaker in the Ministry of Education, Bhutan. He also worked as a researcher at the University of New South Wales, Canberra, Australia, and EDO Asia Consultancy in Singapore. He runs the EduPlus Training Institute in Thimphu as his founder, and he has also founded the Bhutan Insights Journal Australia, the second journal that was inaugurated on day one of the same conference, and also serves as its deputy editor-in-chief. Let's welcome Phuntsho Wandi to deliver his presentation on designing an inclusive and comprehensive education policy for school education in Bhutan.
Excuse me. I was very happy to see Dr. Dojitile's picture before, at the start of this thematic session. It was a very beautiful picture of young boys and girls with traditional music instrument. And I think that is the essence of my presentation. Your Excellency, Dashos, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to present on education policy, and my presentation is confined to school education, basically touching pre-primary to class 12. Now, when we talk about education, we can't help but to go back to some education theories. So, education theories say that the purpose of education is to build the intellectual, emotional, moral component of a human personality. It is a holistic upbringing of an individual, and education is a social equalizer. It is the one that balances us as human beings on the same platform. So the theorists have been telling us over and over again, and Dr. Dojitile's presentation was touching on Thesam Gomsum. And today, in my presentation, I may touch on Lingoyisum Gishen, basically educating the body, speech, and mind. So, moving on, because it was felt important that education to be considered as a social equalizer, many of the international conventions and treaties have considered education to break away from a tool of poverty, disengagement, and disadvantage. And that is why so many conventions and treaties have been signed, basically as a means or as a tool to bring on a platform of social equity, on a platform of social order, justice, in an atmosphere of humanity. But there are so many changes going on. Just as Joshua VC was highlighting this morning. So there is a change in the climate, there is a change in the social order, there is a change in environment, there is a change in socio-economic conditions. We are being increasingly challenged by artificial intelligence, and faced against the face of rising technology, Bhutan is not spared from these changes. So that is why my objective of the study is to investigate Bhutan's current educational challenges and opportunities in the face of an increasing interconnectedness. And also the other objective that I have is to engage in cross-country institutional lesson learning through the adoption of not best practices, but best fit practices. By the way, I did my PhD through publication track. So this is an extract from the publications that I have done, and it may not follow the proper presentation sequences. Now, going back to our history of education, we all know that the history of education is mostly benchmarked on the monastic education. With the arrival of Guru Rinpoche in the 8th century, with the arrival of Jabdungao Namgyal, and with the institution of Tangucheri Dojiden Monastery in 1621, the first formalized education structure was born in Bhutan. Now, deriving from that, most of the educational philosophies were derived from the monastic order. For example, concepts like Thadamtsi Lejumre, and His Majesty the Fourth King always focused on Sem Gochepzoni, Sem Dingrizoni, Sem Dazinthamni. So these are all our important national values that has derived from the Buddhist teachings. When modern education came to Bhutan, then the new concepts, the new governmental concepts framed by the new public management systems based on efficiency, productivity, effectiveness, themes like outcome-based education, results-based education, competency-based education, competition, standardization, commodification of education, commercialization of education came into force. And then in the new era, education is mostly being used to fit the industrialist nature. So there is a bipolar characterization of educational goals. Are we teaching education with human values, or are we imparting education with economic values? So there is this tension of the utilitarianism and economism, basically education for efficiency, or are we doing education for humanistic goals? The methodology I have adopted is a mix of qualitative documentary review and deliberative policy analysis. Some participants or policymakers, policy benefactors, policy implementers were consulted. There are two factors. One is external and one is the internal that has shaped education policies. Externally, with Bhutan's integration and interactions with the global community, there's no help but to be influenced naturally by the foreign ideologies and by the foreign concepts. So that's why our education became so much focused on examination, standards, that's bringing stress to students and teachers alike. But the focus that I would like to draw is on internal. We have had education policies, and in terms of the education goals, that's being said very clear by His Majesty the King. He says that education should be local and translocal. It has to be locally rooted and globally competent. We need to teach in our students the values of Bhutan, our unity, the values of Thadamtsi and Lenjunde, and also with the translocal competencies. That's been very clear. However, in terms of policy coherence, in terms of the implementation and articulation, there is some inconsistencies. There are also some interferences from the political actors, and there's also an issue of policy contextualization. There are unclear policy tools, instruments, intervention and evaluation strategies. Overall, there's a lack of comprehensive policy framework, and in the lack of a comprehensive and inclusive policy framework, our educators are confused. To answer to this, there is actually, to go back to the policies, I've referred to 4 important: Bhutan Baccalaureate, Green School for Green Bhutan, Educating for Gross National Happiness, and the Bhutan Education Blueprint. In these 4 elements of the policy document, everything that His Majesty aspires is there. But the problem is that it is not presented in an inclusive, comprehensive, structured framework. To address this gap, I have worked on what I fondly call as the Sherrick Kilgore. This is an adaptation from Gross National Happiness, and also an adaptation from Dharma Chakra, the wheel of the Buddha. In the center of the Sherrick Kilgore is happiness, a desire for all sentient beings, a desire for all human beings, and it is also our national development goal. At the outside, in the orange color, are the 4 pillars of the Sherrick Kilgore, and that is the knowledge, values, skills, and the family. This is a direct derivation from Educating for Gross National Happiness. At the outside are the 8 school greeneries, the greeneries of the moral, spiritual, cultural, ethical, environmental, physical, and so on and so forth. I have added 2 more, and that is occupational and physical domain. So I call it a still adaptation from the GNH. It is the domain of Sherrick Kilgore. Outside that, in the small letters, you could see indicators. There are 88 indicators in there. So how do we execute this? Pillars, domains, and indicators. We can execute through 3 pathways of positive psychology, GNH curriculum, and broader learning environment. And all these pillars, domains, indicators, and pathways are subject to scrutiny, and that is the assessment. Now, when we talk about the ideology, as I have submitted here, it's very clear and fine. There is this need for historical consciousness with contemporary competences. We need to equip in our students with the skills of the 21st century, but also with learning of the past, to respect our tradition, to respect our roots, to know where we belong. And that was coming out very clearly in all the speeches of His Majesty. But we need to integrate the modern concepts and the foreign ideologies with a sense of awareness. We need to know what we are integrating. We need to know whether we are tarnishing our own value systems. We need to have a balance of modernity and tradition, and also inclusive and comprehensive. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that our education policies need to be a fine mix of conventional and contemporary values. Mandala is a universal wheel. It has a center, inner circle, and outer circle. The beauty is that the outer circle leads towards the inner circle. And in the Sherrick Kilgore, the outer circle leads toward the inner circle of promoting happiness and humanity. In the mandala, what we have articulated is that there are traditional values of Bhutan, and also the OECD competencies are there. The 21st century skills are there in the indicators. And also, there are rich values that has come through in the form of speeches from His Majesty and also in the form of kasho. So ideally, my attempt has been to make an inclusive and a comprehensive education policy framework. This is not definitely exhaustive, so I would like to invite the scholars, the thought leaders, policy actors to debate on it, talk on it, fight on it, and improve on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Funso, for your study outlining the need for a forward-looking education policy framework to guide reforms and ensure education aligns with Bhutan's cultural values and vision for an enlightened, knowledge-based society, and aligned with the Sherikil Core and its adaptation on the Mandala model. And now to move on to the final speaker in this session. Before lunch, we have Dr. Kille, Assistant Professor in the Department of STEM Education in Samse College of Education, and working in the same college since 2006. He has a PhD in education from Aalborg University, Denmark, and Masters in Botany from the University of New England, Australia. Currently, he is engaged in teaching subject-specific pedagogical and research modules to his postgraduate and undergraduate students, and his research interests are in educational research, educational technology, science education, inclusive education, and social research. Please welcome Dr. Kille to deliver his presentation on exploring equity and inclusion using universal design for learning and teaching at Samse College of Education.
Yes, I was just walking to this podium. Initially, I was just thinking whether I would share or not. I am anxious at the same time nervous because in 2016, the very spot where I'm standing at, I had my 45 minutes of the PhD defense and 2 hours of grilling. And in a way, reflecting on that gives me some goosebumps on that event. And with this, Your Excellency, Honorable Vice Chancellor, distinguished guests and participants, just as I take on with this particular topic on equity and inclusion at the same time, including UDL, I would like to again declare myself that I am not specialized, at the same time not certified in inclusive education or in special education. The inspiration to do this research actually has stemmed up during the time when our Pro-Vice Chancellor was then the president at Samse College of Education, and when we were doing a project, an IDRC funded project, had the opportunity to attend courses on UDL, at the same time also do a thorough analysis of data on equity and inclusion, at the same time eventually doing quite some reports. And eventually again, I claim success on this particular work with the team that I have. I would like to briefly introduce my team because they are watching live on Facebook. I actually has come into this group as a team leader because of my knowledge in educational research, at the same time also my background in qualitative research. I have my second colleague, Mr. Pema Dukpa, who hails expertise in quantitative research. Then I have Madam Kezong Wangmo, who has expertise in special education and inclusive education. And then I have Sonam Wangmo, who is also a very passionate, at the same time proficient pedagogic practitioners. That's why we had this team So with this, I introduce to you the topic. You can then see, like even through my presentation, it's mostly on exploration. Exploring equity and inclusion using universal design for learning in the teacher education at Samti College of Education. And in the background, as we see on the first, I have actually a list, which I'm going to make a small narrative on this list. The first one is from the global literature on how it talks about why equity and inclusion is very important. It is now known to be very imperative in the education system. It has been highlighted as a foundation to quality education. And researchers have claimed that this very principle of equity and inclusion has, in a way, it facilitates creating learning environments which is equitable at the same time that suppose students from all backgrounds, irrespective of gender, socioeconomic status, at the same time also on ability. And at the same time, many of us, I think, there will be also few who must be specialized in specialized education or inclusive education. It often, and many times, it talks about how inclusive classrooms are very different and unique from the regular classrooms. There are proven researchers where it talks about inclusive classrooms, how the students have improved academic achievement. They also have enhanced mental well-being. And in a way, they also have increased sense of belonging. And this has been proven through research. So this shows that it is a great value. In the second stem, then I have highlighted, for example, the Wheel of Academic Law of REB, our university, which actually, one of the main highlights, it talks about justice, it talks about access, it talks about student-centered learning. Though it do not spell out equity and inclusion, in a way, inherently it is equity and inclusion. Similarly, I think those of you who have looked into the education policy document, it talks about, it envisions inclusion, and it again talks about holistic education that harmonizes with gross national happiness. So in a way, I think even our core and the prime documents, it is very much pointing towards the importance of equity and inclusion. And now, why Samti College of Education? Why Samti College of Education? At this point of time, among the two colleges, we are known as a secondary teacher education college, a premier leading, and has to be. Whether we do it or not, we are supposed to be. At the same time, people look up and think that we should be practicing equity and inclusion. And again, on the good side, I think our teacher educators at Samti College of Education had that opportunity to undergo courses on UDL, courses on equity and inclusion. At the same time, in the courses, though it's not explicit, but then in the main document of the college, it highlights about inclusion. And then at the same time, we also have modules where we talk about UDL. And in a way, we have that assumption that almost everybody at Samti College of Education has somehow experienced equity and inclusion through UDL. So at the same time, again, literature says that at the teacher education college, it's very important to have equity and inclusion in practice. It has been said that especially pre-service teachers, they look up to their teacher educators if they model inclusion in their classroom. If they see their tutors modeling inclusion in their classroom, they have to experience inclusion in themselves. And it has been proven through research that eventually, I think this is what they're going to replicate in their future classrooms. So in a way, at this point of time, at Samti College of Education, the gap, we have seen that there's very limited understanding of how SC educators conceptualize, at the same time understand UDL in teaching. we have just 3 objectives. We have looked into the perception, then we have looked into practice, and then we have looked into which are the enablers, at the same time which are the barriers. So these are the 3 objectives that we had. And the significance of the study, as I'm not going to read the whole point, you can see that it directly contributes to agencies as listed. Firstly, to the teacher education. It also actually has directions towards the policy and professional development, and eventually to the nation's vision of aligning it with GNH values. And also, in a way, it provides replicable models for the other RUB colleges. Now, on the literature review, though I have touched briefly in the beginning, in the background, not briefly, extensively. And here again, I take this pride, though our study was very small scale, looking back, thinking deep, we then see that we were able to unite these 3 big elements. If you look into this, by the framework of the template that we got from the conference, it is written as a key theoretical framework. The theory actually is inspired through constructivism, but however, this is a conceptual framework that we have come up. And often I think maybe people are conversant about equity, people are conversant about inclusion, people also talk about UDL nowadays, but in a way how to bring them together I think is very important. Equity is of how we create access for everybody, inclusion creating, enabling learning environment so that everybody does active participation. Then if you look into UDL, now UDL seems to be the means. UDL seems to be the means which can take forward equity and inclusion to the classroom practices. So we have done this framework, and I actually foresee that if some of you want to do bigger projects at the same time, if they are individuals aspiring to do PhD, this could be a very good conceptual framework that I recommend. And the research gaps that we have, as I have highlighted, is because there's limited empirical research, especially on UDL in the Bhutanese higher education. Though we have recently, one of our colleagues has published, but it is in the context of school system. And at the same time, also on the professional development and curriculum design, lack of contextual understanding again. This is very important on how teacher educators interpret and enact UDL. We have found as a literature gap in our study, though we found out that all of the teacher educators know and understand about UDL, but some interpret differently. They sometimes align UDL only to the disabled. So we have to look into that. And now on the methodology, I'm not going to read the whole thing. We had, as you look on the last bullet points, explanatory and sequential. We used explanatory and sequential mixed method. So we had survey, and we also had the qualitative interviews. We interviewed 9 teacher educators who were actively, we were supposed to be employing UDL in the classroom practices. Our sampling was convenient and purposive, and we have done especially for qualitative thematic analysis. And now especially for the semi-structured interview research questions, we have straight away picked it from the research questions. And on top of that, one of the trustworthiness that we have looked into this is that we have taken, we have requested an expert in UDL to look into the structure of a question, at the same time also the sequencing of the question. And this person was not included in the research later. Similarly, for quantitative, we have used 15 items, 5 items per one principle of UDL. We have used it. And again, we have based the items developed based on the cast, which is known for UDL. At the same time, we have also adapted some from the previous research, previously already done research on UDL. And on the research and findings, I will just briefly highlight. Here again, we have just brought one point. We have said that lecturers demonstrate a moderate level of engagement with UDL principles in their teaching practice. Though their understanding was there, as I have mentioned earlier, they do not have that clarity. At the same time, there were few also who have scored low organizing personalized learning for students, personal learning for students. That's why if you see, we will have the mean 9.67 from the scale of 6 to 16. And this again, I want to do a small highlight on this particular chart. Though only two have been highlighted, where we have seen very low score. Here, we especially teacher educators were not able to organize self-regulated learning. In a way, we have also seen variation in the responses among teacher educators, especially when specific questions such as we have asked about if in the course content or on the model descriptor, if there is a explicit mention of equity and inclusion. There were some who agreed, there were also some who did not agree. And so on the qualitative, in general, we have seen that these are certain aspects they have presented, but there were also some surprising responses in the qualitative interview, and which actually also was a little surprise for us as well. And then especially this, when talking about limited resources, because oftentimes we thought there was resources, but then individuals pointed out that when the resources are shared, it is not done based on the number of modules or a number of students. So it is done at uniform. So this some interesting thing. And then as mentioned, they say training is too theoretical. And similar thing, this I have covered up. Teacher educators value, but they face theory and practice. So there is a mismatch between theory and practice. And practical implications, as it was also mentioned in the significance, I'm not going to repeat. As you will see, it has implications for the college, at the same time also at RUB, and also for the system as a nation as whole. And so these again are the key contributions that we see. We have already made the attempt with the first one, the implications of the empirical evidence of UDL application in Bhutanese higher education. We have already made a proposal and we made an attempt. We failed, but we are still working on it. We are thinking about doing it in the next round. So these are some of the summary key contributions that we have highlighted. And future directions of the research from these findings. And eventually, since this is good, and because of the time, I think. So in the summary conclusion, UDL provides a transformative pathway, as we see, for inclusive, equitable teaching. SE educators exhibit commitment and awareness, but need more institutional support. So I can highlight on this if there are questions later. Bridging theory-practice gap is essential for long-term inclusion, and also sustainable change requires systematic policy alignment and teacher empowerment. I think this is, I think all will agree. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kile, for your research on UDL to assess its potential to significantly enhance teaching, learning, and student engagement, and to promote equity and inclusion, and the need for stronger institutional support on this front. And with this, we have come to the end of the session speakers, and we now have the Q&A moderation on this thematic area. And for this, we would like to invite on stage Dr. Doji Tinde, who will moderate the session, and our session speakers, Norbu Wangdi, Sringom Tamang, Dr. Phunso Wandi, and Dr. Kille. Thank you.
Thanks. Lasola. Welcome to the Q&A session. We had 4 very stimulating presentations on very interesting topics for educators, inclusive policy, then another very interesting topic, integration of generative AI tools in teaching, learning, and assessment in selected IUB colleges. And of course, my friend Norbu did a fascinating presentation on barriers to technology use in Bhutanese secondary school science classrooms. And Dr. Kinley's presentation was on UDL, Universal Design for Learning. I will have, at this point in time, no questions for the panelists. I think it will be in the interest of policymakers and relevant stakeholders, if there are in this hall, at this time, for each panelist, each speaker to sort of think of one key recommendation based on the insights and perspectives that have arisen from your study. One key recommendation from your study, I think that will be quite useful, and then I'm sure it will also generate some thinking and discussion as a result of that. So to begin with, I'll go by the names listed in the abstract booklet. I will ask Libin Norbu to share one key recommendation that you think is critical.
Good morning once again. Thank you, Doctor, for the opportunity. In terms of limited infrastructures, I believe our government is trying their best with the limited resources we have. Therefore, the most recommendation, one of the key recommendations from my study I would suggest is to implement digital and AI literacy programs in our schools, as well as colleges, and to all the Bhutanese populations. Because we are aware that most of our people fell victims to the scammers due to low digital and AI literacy. Thank you.
Is this recommendation relevant to the school, to the Dzongkhag Education Office, or the Ministry of Education and Skills Development?
These recommendations can be catered to all the agencies. Neither a ministry nor a school cannot alone conduct such type of literacy programs. Therefore, all the relevant organizations and all the individuals, we must unite together to create such awareness in the national level. Thank you, Doctor.
Thanks. Now to Tsering, your very interesting study on integration of generative AI tools in teaching and learning. What is the one key recommendation that you are proposing to all the relevant stakeholders, particularly the college and the university?
At that time, I'm not sure what development has happened in the different colleges since this research was conducted, but in our study, the one thing that I didn't present, but one thing that came quite clearly was there was no policy about the use of AI. So students said that in some, teachers were encouraging them to use AI, whereas in other modules, if you have works that are generated by AI, or if you have sought help in your assignments based on AI, then you are being asked to redo it. So there was a lot of confusion among the participants about, are we allowed to use AI versus are we not allowed to use AI? Because there were some tutors who had banned the use of AI in assignments in classrooms. So I think the need for a very clear policy just to let students know what are they allowed to do with AI, I think that would be the one recommendation, if that makes sense.
As you concluded your talk, you said, do not ring the bell. What's your position in terms of balance, in terms of wisdom, let's say?
Oh, I think it might depend upon the assessment tasks. For me personally, it depends upon my assessment tasks. I'm a language teacher, and when I'm a language teacher and AI can technically generate writing that are better than me, then I think that changes the average of what a student average assignment looks like for me. So usually with language modules, like if I'm an assessment that caters to creative writing or language, then that's where I would usually get a little bit hard on the students. I can't lie, my students are in the floor, and then say, all right, this is the assignment where I would like you not to use AI. Whereas there will also be other assessments that actually caters to Dr. Killer's presentation about universal design of presentation. So if they write a short story, they get to present that in a presentation form, or in a vocal audio form, or in a digital story form. So the writing part, I'm usually saying perhaps not, because they need to improve it, but on the other hand, the presentation, I'm okay with them using a little bit, because that, I'm not assessing that as much in terms of language. So I don't know if that's the correct way to do it, but that's the balance I have found within myself.
Thanks, La. Now, Dr. Finso, your fascinating presentation on the Sherik Kilkur. What's the one recommendation that you make?
Yes, thank you, Doctor. Thank you for the opportunity, because I think I missed emphasizing the point that the current educational policy documents, they're very good enough. Educating for gross national happiness, very good. Green School for Green Bhutan concept, very good. And Bhutan Baccalaureate. And then we have the Bhutan Education Blueprint with 8 student aspirations and 8 national aspirations. But the issue that I discovered was these documents were standing in their own silos. So there was a need to integrate, come up into one policy document, into one framework. So as the education reform activities are going on, if there's a value in the Sherik Kilkur, if it gives some kind of a direction. Otherwise also, if there's a need to work on the Sherik Kilkur and improve further, I think it will be beneficial. So I would recommend the relevant officials to make use of it and also comment on it and provide feedback. And I think this would be, if not a starting point, I think it would be one of the good points for a futuristic, transformative education for Bhutan. So I think using this would also give us a leverage of balancing the educational goals to meet the aspects of spiritualism with materialism.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kilne. One recommendation.
Lasula, as I have in the first slides presented on the university's aspiration, the national aspiration, and in a way, in 2021, a study by the UNICEF, they have already pointed out that there is a gap and lack of equity and inclusion in the education system. And then again, further again, literature says that especially to have active implementation of equity and inclusion, leadership is very important. At the same time, having clear written policies on the implementation is very important. So I would directly recommend both at the RVB level, at the same time also at the college level, especially out of many, I don't want to talk about resources
Yes.
or teacher preparation or or teacher competence, but especially just focusing on one idea, it will be on having explicit policy on equity and inclusion, both at the university level, at the same time also at the college level. At the same time, literature also says that it becomes very active in action only when there is strong support from the leadership. So it again goes back to the university as well as to
Thank you, thank you. I'm sure there are many questions from the audience. So we welcome questions at the first hand. Yes, yes, please.
Thank you for the excellent presentations. I'm Chimidima, faculty member at GCIT. My question is to Madam Thuring. One of the findings, it actually revealed that students are using Gen AI for emotional support. So it's good to hear that they are using it, but I'm a little bit concerned about this because there was a article in New York Times titled, "A Teen Was Suicidal, ChatGPT Was the Friend He Confided in." So I was wondering, right, as an educator and as a society, what kind of intervention should we have so as to help our students with such issues that might happen in the future? And is there any provision in Samsi College of Education where we also include a curriculum related to AI and counseling? Because there is a PG program, Contemplative Counseling Psychology. So I was thinking maybe we can also have a unit addressing AI and counseling. Thank you.
Thank you, Chimi, for that question. Yes, when we were doing the research, that came out to be, we were also surprised, our team was also very surprised by the students' use of AI as an emotional support friend. But one of the things it also highlighted is that was mostly with Snapchat AI, because Snapchat, I think Gen Z are using it quite a lot, so to conversely have conversations with them, so that was quite popular. I think with generative AI, there are also certain AI tools that are now actually addressing mental health problems. I'm not sure whether the participants are actually using those, but so far in our research, when we discussed it, majority said that they are using Snapchat AI as conversation. In terms of students getting the correct information in terms of what the generative AI is highlighting, I think that's a much bigger issue than just Samsi College. I think it's a much bigger issue with parents, teachers, and everybody. So while we do have contemplative counseling program in our college, and we do talk about AI literacy, I think AI literacy in terms of what can the users expect to AI to do properly versus what can they not expect. So in terms of that AI literacy and verification tools, I think that's the way to go right now.
So thank you. Can we have one or two more questions?
My name is Topge and I work with the Office of the Vice Chancellor. And thank you to all the presenters for a very insightful presentation. I initially wanted to ask this question to Madam Sringwangmo, but it seems like she already got it. So any of the panel members presenters can actually respond to this question, because Gen AI and AI is a very general subject, and I think everybody will have your own views. Because based on Madam Sring's presentation, and general feeling is also that AI makes us quite lazy. We don't want to read what we have to read and would like to meet the deadline instead of really understanding what we will have to understand. So the worry is artificial intelligence leading to affecting the authentic intelligence that we should be actually acquiring as a process, in the process of getting into the education business, and ultimately resulting in alienating the education alienated intelligence. So I just would like to seek your views on these three aspects: artificial intelligences affecting the authentic intelligence and ultimately making it alienated intelligence. So what's your comment on this, considering the fact that students are becoming lazy. They would like to be more for meeting the deadline than really understanding and comprehending what they are supposed to be comprehending. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not an expert on AI, but through the literature review, you're right. Students are getting more and more, not only students actually, we are all getting more and more inclined to machines and AI. That is the very reason why I was presenting Sherry Kilcour, because in one of the circles you will see the physical domain, and that comes as an additional. So when we make policies or when we craft activities in school, you may like to go into one of the domains or pillars or into some of the indicators and see, okay, this is something that we would like to introduce for this year because our students or whether our college is too much going on to machine learning. So I think this kind of, in a way, kind of guides you in the way you design your activities to ensure that we continue to live as human beings.
Tashi.
Lasla, my question is to Dr. Funso. Okay, you have also witnessed, so have I. We have seen many reforms and policy shifts in the Bhutanese education over the years. But what is really happening inside the classroom where the learning actually takes place? So how does your Sherry Kilcour framework ensures that these policies don't remain at the level of documents and meetings, but truly transform the teaching and learning experiences for students and teachers?
Thank you, Madam Tashi. Because the Kilcour was very, the indicators were very small, so I could not really read out all of the indicators. But if you zoom down into it, you will find indicators like place-based learning. So you will find indicators like activity-based learning. Also positive psychology, mindfulness education. And more importantly, I think you will, in the environmental domain, you will find a lot of activities where you could convert that into real-life classroom activities. So essentially, because I was there in the education I'm still working for education, so I have a lived experience of a classroom teacher, and also I have a lived experience of working at the policy level. So I thought putting this in the format of pillar indicators and also in the pathways really kind of directs the policymakers to kind of teachers, for example, to ensure that it is implementable. So I have no specific suggestions on how you will do it, but I think the indicators are there on what you will do it, for what reason, at what point in time. Thank you.
Lasso, Lola.
My question is also to Dr. Punzawangdi. You mentioned 4, components of the policy, and including, quite a, 4 of the policies that you mentioned. What makes me think, by looking at those, that list, is that there is some absence of the overall guiding policy. Like you would remember that we started with draft education policy. I think you were involved in that as well. And also we talked a lot about Education Act that we might require as an umbrella policy, the mother of all documents for the education. Why is there are seemingly disregard for these two documents in your, in your research?
Plus,
I mean, why is there not, absence of importance given to, significance given to these two, documents that we've been actually working for the last many years?
Plus, thank you. I think in terms of the policy articulation, it's very clear actually. So we have the royal edicts, then it's there in the constitution to develop the whole human personality. So these documents really spells out, and also there in the latest national education policy, which was just endorsed. In there, the education vision is also very clear actually. So these are all coming in alignment with the national development goals and philosophies. The problem is that I think there is a limitation in contextualizing the foreign ideas and ideologies as it comes in. And also there are lesser dialogues being generated amongst the teachers, principals, students. This is what I found out from my focus group discussions. So they will need to talk more and more about the education vision, the overarching goals first. It is there, but I think the stakeholders will have to engage in more dialogues so that everybody understands. After that, I think the purpose and the objectives will become clear, and the implementations will also follow through. I'm not sure whether I answered you.
So I guess we have to stop here. There is a very natural convergence of very important, educational points for educational discourse and conversation. Education is never a full stop. It evolves, it changes all the time, so there's never an end to this. It's a constant effort, struggle, hard work. There's never a final point whereby a society can say, we have achieved the best education system and there's no movement beyond that. As much as we would have liked to continue the discussion, I guess we are bound by time, so thank you very much for responding to all of the questions that were asked, and thanks to the audience for your patient listening, and of course the brilliant questions. Thanks, Kadinche.
Thank you, Dr. Dojitile, our moderator, for the very illuminating opening keynote on the session on innovation in education that is truly unique in terms of how we see innovation in education and alluding to the innovation of the spirit. And to our session speakers, Nobu Wandi, Sringom Tamang, Dr. Phunso Wandi, and Dr. Kille for the very engaging question and answer session, and to the entire team for sharing your wisdom, knowledge, experiences, and your recommendations through the presentations. And with this, we conclude Thematic Area 7 on innovation in education. And following this, we have the lunch and networking until 1:40 p.m. And just so that we're able to track our time, we request you to be back by 1:40, please, love. And before we proceed, there's also an announcement from the organizing team to pick up the copies of the BJRD or the Bhutan Journal for Research and Development if you all need a copy each. Lasla, with this, you may please proceed to your lunch and enjoy it. Las, thank you.